You're listening to the Disruptive Franchise Podcast with Stacey Cann, the podcast that celebrates innovation in franchising and peeks behind the curtain of failure, success, and the future of the franchise industry. This week, we are talking all about pricing in franchising, and it's relevant to lots and lots of you that are listening because it's the number one question I get asked by people who decide to franchise their businesses. What do I charge for it? But also people who have already franchised. When I work with them, we always look at whether the pricing is right. And the reason that we do that is because there's so much that goes into the pricing of a franchise. It's all about price perception and what they get for the money and the results that they can have. And there's so much behind pricing that actually sits within money mindset as well. So we're going to dive right in on this week's episode. In terms of what you should price your franchise at, I want to be really straight and just say there is no exact perfect price. There's no critic-proof price either. And if you are looking around at kind of similar franchises to you and pricing by like that kind of like proxy, like what's everyone else doing? Just beware, because you don't know what's gone into their pricing and you don't know what they deliver and you don't know what their money mindset is. Now, I'm a big advocate for money mindset. I think we should all be very aware of money mindset. And money mindset can put blocks in the way of things like, oh, I can't charge that, nobody will pay it. Or I can't charge that, no one's got any money. Those are money blocks. And there's a whole load of stuff on the internet to help you with money mindset. So let's start off in the logical place of price perception. How you price your franchise is how people are going to judge what they're going to get from it. So if you judge your franchise kind of offering to be, right, let's go lower price and we'll get more people. So we always assume that if the price is lower, we're going to get more people. That's just not how it happens. I'm sorry to shatter the illusion for you, but it's just not how it works. It's not about having the cheapest franchise so that people come buy it. Because what happens is we look at something and we go, that's a bit cheap. Not going to get anything from that. So let's say you price your franchise at I don't know, £3,000. It's incredibly low for a lifestyle franchise. And at £3,000, you're going to get the kind of people who come along and think, well, I can afford that, but it's on the side. You're not going to grow a business army of franchisees who are, you know, in there, dedicated, doing it full time. That's very much a part-time jam. So beware of that price perception, because the minute that we kind of try to price it low and keep ourselves safe mentally when we're looking at talking about money, we do ourselves a huge disservice. Equally, if you've got a franchise that's probably worth, I don't know, let's say around 10,000 and you price it too much at 20,000, you're still going to sell franchises. It's going to be harder to sell them because maybe the value proposition, like all of the things that make it valuable, don't match the price ticket. But you'll know that fairly quickly, I think, when you go put that pricing out. There's no right or wrong answer here either. And so when I'm looking at pricing a franchise, and look, everyone's got a different way of doing this, but when I look at pricing a franchise, what I'm looking at is what else is in the industry, what's similar, so that we can kind of get some benchmarks in place. But also, what is the value for the franchisee ultimately? If the franchisee is buying a franchise that they could reliably earn £100,000 on, then we don't need to price it at like £2,000 or £3,000. We also don't need to price it like 20, 30,000. So where is that midpoint? The average lifestyle franchise sits between kind of £7,000 and £10,000. So looking at kind of what's in the marketplace, first of all, gives you a really good indication of what people are doing and what people might be prepared to pay, because you don't know how many franchises they are selling. The other thing that we have to really, really consider that I always see missed is what's the cost of delivering your franchise. So let's say you've got a franchise package that you put together and you want to sell it for £10,000, but you're going to be giving them £7,000 worth of equipment in that. Well, then you're priced wrong. Because you're underselling all of the other stuff outside of the equipment pricing. So you have to know your pricing here. It's always really important to know when you're trying to decide what that package is going to be, what it's going to cost you to put it together. When you're looking at the costs, the things to look at are How much is the equipment that you're going to be providing? Uniform costs. Are you giving them any marketing support in their launch, whether that's you helping them to do the marketing or providing them with like a stack of leaflets or a roller banner, that kind of like a marketing pack? How much does the training cost you to deliver? Now, it might be you doing the training and you might think, well, there's no cost, but there is a cost. There's a cost to your time. So, okay, let's price up the amount of time it's going to take you to help them with their onboarding and what those costs are. Are there any courses that are rolled into this that they're going to need to do? That needs to be considered as well. And all of these things, like venue hire for the training, that kind of stuff, it does all add up. So you need to really make sure that you know about your, cost of delivery before you can even start to think about, what the profit margin is going to be on the top. The other thing to think about there, like I just said, is staffing that training. It might be that you start off doing the franchisee training yourself initially, and therefore you have like a perceived no cost, in bunny quotes, because there's always a cost to your time. But actually, eventually, and this is where it's hard for you to think strategically if you've never done this, this is the benefit of working with somebody who has, is that one day you're going to hit a point where you don't want to do that training anymore. You want somebody else to come and do it for you. So bake that pricing in at the start because it doesn't bite you in the bum later on. The other thing to think about with your package price is, do you want some wiggle room to be able to offer a discount? Now, ideally, we would never offer a discount, but let's say, for example, you target people who are blue light workers specifically. Well, to be able to give them a discount actually is really valuable because you're recognizing, all of the training and the skills that they already have and bring to the role themselves. So again, price it to give you enough margin to be able to strategically discount if that's part of the plan as well. So those are all things to think about for the pricing of the franchise package. And then I've said a really valuable word in there that it's just slipped in, but that is profit. How much profit are you going to make on your package, your initial package? When you sell a franchise, the package fee is your initial influx of cash. And as a business, you're going to really need that influx of cash. I know that there are organizations out there that say that you shouldn't make a profit when you sell a franchise package, but actually, please bear in mind that it has taken you years and years and years of experience to get to the point of franchise. And I strongly believe that you should be financially compensated for that every single time. And that is where your profit comes in. Without having a healthy profit margin on everything that you sell, you're not building a commercial business, you're building a prison. So make sure that you have a decent amount of profit on that package as well. So if you have £5,000 worth of equipment, it's going to cost you £2,000 in training costs. Then, do you then have that £3,000 profit spare to help your business? In which case, your pricing comes out at £10,000. Simple. I like round numbers. It's easy. So think about your profit, think about your costs, think about the price perception. That's like a really nice little triangle when we're thinking about how we price that that initial kind of product that they buy. I'm going to just side note here on pilots. Very often when somebody franchises a business, it's sensible to run pilots where you bring in maybe 3 or a couple of guinea pigs, for want of a better expression, the early adopters that come in and help you to make sure that things like your operations and your marketing and everything is there and fully fleshed out, to help you kind of pull out those early challenges that you don't think about in those initial stages. So in terms of pilot, the benefit of being an early adopter with my franchisee hat on is that they are less risk averse. They're quite happy to kind of come in at an early stage so that you're looking for a particular type of person. And the benefit of coming in early without that proven track record of the franchise behind you is that they very often then get a discounted price. Now, this may be where you want to sacrifice a bit of that profit margin, because your pilot franchisees, those early adopters, they bring you something more valuable than profit. They bring you proof. So actually, to have 2 or 3 pilots up and running is going to then be much easier to sell your full package, because those prospective franchisees can go talk to the pilots and hear about their experience. And you can say, these are the results in the first 6 months or however you sell it. So pilot's the only exception where I would look at lowering the price on purpose, because it will give you the proof that helps you to go sell those future franchises, and also help you shape the operation. And when we're franchising initially, like, it's quite a nervy thing. So to get those early people in and prove to yourself and build your own self-confidence as a franchisor is also incredibly valuable. Next up in pricing, I want to talk about the monthly management fees, or the royalty fee, it's also often called. This is where you really do have to know your numbers, because very often people will say to me, well, what should I charge, Stace? What should I charge on a monthly basis, the reoccurring revenue? And again, you have to put a pin in what should we charge and go back and look at the numbers. How much is it going to cost you to go and support that franchisee on a regular basis? And not just like on an individual level, but at scale. Things to think about here include tech. Are you going to give them a branded Google workspace? There's cost attached to that. Are you giving them a full CRM system that they can use for emails? There's a cost attached to that. Are you going to be getting on monthly Zoom meetings with them or going to visit them? There's a time cost to that, as well as a travel cost if you're going to physically meet them. You also have to factor in, and this is what's missed every time, that time that it's going to take you, a mental capacity that's going to take you, particularly in those early days, to be getting all of these kind of questions and asks for help. So franchisee gets started, let's say they deliver their first set of services, and then they've got questions for you, or something goes wrong and the franchisee is going to come and message you. You have to factor in the time and the mental capacity that it's going to take you into the management franchise fee, and that can be a percentage, or it can be a fixed cost, or it can be a combination of both, but you have to be properly compensated for your time. And like we were saying with the franchise package, also the thing to figure out here is kind of putting in a bit of slack, so that one day, maybe when you're 5 or 25 franchisees, whatever suits you, you bring in that you can afford to bring in a franchise support manager. Again, you're going to want to do it all in the early days, but actually you want to build a commercial business asset rather than something that's completely dependent on you. So your pricing for your monthly fees has to potentially then help you fund your future franchise support manager as well. That's how we don't get trapped within our franchise. So think about your future staffing costs here. And, one franchisee is not going to pay for your staffing costs, but what percentage of your monthly management fees can you then put towards a future franchise support manager? And for most people building a franchise, that is critically important. How do you structure that fee? Well, what you'll very often be told is a percentage of their revenue, but I give you a word of caution here, because if a franchisee decides not to work, let's say, for example, month of August, they take the month of August off, then they don't earn anything. And 10% of zero is still zero. But you will still have to cover the cost of their CRM system, the cost of the support that you give them, etc., etc. So I heavily advocate that you have a minimum fee in place. So let's say £150 a month, as a just as an example, or 10% of, or 15% of, or whatever percentage you charge of their turnover, whichever is greater. It means that you can also then administer, an ongoing charge, which just sits across, and then invoice or, take at source that percentage that you're going to earn as well. And look, it's 2026 as I record this. The other thing that we have to think about forever now is that what if something else stops us from working like we used to, i.e. another global pandemic happens? If that happens, you need those monthly management fees in place still, with a minimum revenue guarantee, so that you know that you can sustain the business. And that feels a little bit selfish, but if you don't sustain the business during a period of crisis like that, there's no business for the franchisees to operate in the future. So it's all about future protection and crisis management there. Another little word on pricing. There's so much, it's such a juicy episode. Another little thing on pricing here is that from a fee break percentage, so very often a franchisor will like to help the franchisee to get up and running. So maybe you say, like, for the first 3 months we're not going to charge you a fee. You can do that, you can make these rules up yourself, but a word of caution, you need to make sure that they are very clear when those fees are going to kick in. Because if they have, like, let's say the first 6 months with no fees, or they get on their feet, they've got no incentive to actually get on their feet because they don't have any minimum payments to meet for you. So I strongly advise against that, if I'm completely honest. And then finally, on pricing to talk about from a franchise point of view is the marketing levy. Not everybody charges a marketing levy. You don't have to charge a marketing levy, but it's usually like a small percentage of the overall turnover that the franchisee pays into essentially a central branding pot. If you're going to charge a marketing levy, please make sure, this is really important, that you are transparent about what that money is being spent on. So you can't just, use it to pay off like the conference fees, for example. It has to benefit everyone, so it has to be a nationwide spend, but it can be used for things like national marketing to grow the franchise, because we all do well when we all do well. The franchisees will do well as you bring more franchisees in. It might be used for national events or national branding or things like that. But that money should be kept in a separate pot. It should not just be chucked into all of your other finances. You should literally have an account that sits in and be fully accountable for that. You don't have to tell them every penny. You don't have to give them a financial report on what you spent that money on, but you should be open and transparent about where that money goes, because it builds trust, but also it means, again, that they can really support. If you're going to do a national advertising campaign, that they can really get behind and support it for you, which can make all the difference. So yeah, lots of pricing stuff in franchise. I've given you lots to think about in there. The tricky thing about pricing, kind of as a final thought, is that if it goes wrong, it can be catastrophic. And the most often times I see it catastrophic is where you get the monthly management fee wrong and there's no minimum in place, and then franchisees sit there effectively dormant and you can't do anything about it, or they want to exit and you've got nothing to kind of justify the fact that you're going to charge them an exit fee, that kind of stuff. It's all really easily avoidable if we have the right things in place right at the start of our franchising journey. You can change your prices as well at any time. So again, making sure you've got it in the contract and that you do it the right way. It has to be fair for everybody, but you can put your package price fee up or down at any point in time. It's completely up to you. And from your management fee perspective, obviously it's going to depend on your contract. It might be that when they hit the end of their contract period, then their price can be put up, or you might have a clause in the contract that says that we can put the price up, as we need to, as we see fit. So make sure that you're covered to be able to do that, and that's all part of being an ethical franchisor and having full transparency where you can. So yeah, that's it on pricing. I think also hopefully this episode helps you to kind of see the benefit of working with someone who's done this before, because anyone can franchise a business by themselves in the UK. You don't need help. But it's these things, these early things and mistakes that I spend a lot of time correcting for franchisors that are already established. And it's far more painful to go correct the mistake than it is to get it right in the first place. And I'll leave you with that thought for today.
This episode was brought to you by Impact Franchising, the agency who offer predictable franchise growth done for you. If you have loved what you've heard, please go and help other people find it by hitting the subscribe button and liking the episode. See you on the next one.